Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. I am very excited to be joined today by one of my best friends from my entire life, Scott Charles Fetters. Scott has been more or less self-employed throughout his entire career and has always been a huge role model and inspiration for me in the career world. I know whenever I've had like low points in my career or need advice, I have always turned to Scott. And so he was a guest that I've wanted to have on since I started this because his wisdom is infinite, and he has inspired many people. Scott currently is the CEO and founder of his media company called Avalanche Media, and he has had several businesses over the years. Hello, Scott, and welcome. Can we kick things off by uh, maybe giving a little bit of background about yourself, letting people know your early sort of cultural background and early influences? This is a very global audience to this podcast. You know, you had a bit of an international childhood as well, so if you could let everyone know where you went to school and where you grew up and some of your early influences?
Yep. So I was born in England. I was born in Wimbledon. My mom is 100% Scottish, not the 5% Scottish or 2% that everyone claims they have these days. So she would like me to claim Scottish, but spent a good chunk of my life in Europe growing up. I went to school with you at Tassis in England. So we all know what it was like being in a little Hogwarts in England. I still felt the calling to be back in the U.S., and I think having a school like Tassis that prepared you for American curriculum made that easier. I didn't really know what school or where I wanted to go, just applied to a couple different things. Ended up in Colorado because I knew as a young kid I loved nature and loved the mountains, and I didn't know a ton about Colorado then, but I am still today in Colorado, living at 11,000 feet. So it's obviously been a choice that I was happy with. And I moved to California for 10 years. That's where I met my wife. And here I am back in Colorado now, doing my thing.
Yay. Yeah. Colorado, I can say, has been a huge influence in Scott's life. Actually, in my life as well, because my family had a holiday home in the mountains, and that really got into my brother's blood as well. Something about the mountains, the Rockies, and you love snowboarding. Yeah, you just
Yeah.
love it. So,
Yeah, I didn't realize there was such a snowboarding and mountain biker and kind of hiker in my blood. But once I found that guy, I was a much happier version of myself.
yeah, through and through. I think the mountains have had a huge impact on you. So,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. Yeah, so I remember when you started at school, and was it CU?
yep,
Boulder.
yep. See you, Boulder. Yeah,
Yeah,
University of
CU
Colorado
Boulder.
Boulder.
Yeah,
Yep.
I went to visit Scott several times at CU Boulder. Had some some wild times.
Some podcast inappropriate times, I think, but you,
Definitely
you
some
came and
frat
left your
parties.
mark. Yep.
Yeah. Um, so when you were, well, obviously you're still quite close with a lot of the people that you went to Boulder with.
Yep.
I know you've had like weddings and stuff, and you were like tight with quite a few of them. How much did Boulder impact your career choices, or did it?
Um, it's funny, I think about that. It's a good question. I graduated college and I had a psych degree and a writing degree. I wanted to understand my family and probably a bit more of myself since we're all a complicated little nut that
Hmm.
needs to be
And we've had
cracked.
complicated upbringings.
And from there, when I graduated, I was able to kind of parlay that into a copywriting job. I was working for the Colorado Daily, which was like a Boulder-based newspaper at the time. And my first real taste of marketing and advertising, I would go around and interview businesses and learn about them, and then I would write a persuasive piece that was the center of the newspaper to encourage people to visit local Boulder businesses. So I graduated to know what I wanted to do, so I became a ski bum. So, and that was my first forte into the business world, and that was part of Vail Resorts. I guess first taste of corporate life, but very different when your day revolves around how much snow has fallen and what runs you're going to ride. And it was a division of ski patrol, and I loved doing that, loved the outdoors, and it was also a way to get over the anxiety of graduating college and not really knowing what the hell you want to do. So I did that for 3 years and moved to San Diego, where I started my first business.
When you were a ski bum, what did you do when it wasn't ski season? I remember you had the family had a place in
Yep.
Breckenridge, so that was very helpful for someone who wasn't earning a lot of money yet. That was a helpful thing for you. But I
Yep.
can't remember what your like day job was when you weren't skiing or
I
snowboarding.
was still getting paid kind of residual rollover checks from the newspaper. I mean, this was all month to month, kind of week to week stuff back in about 2005. So, you'd get a random couple $100 check from the newspaper for several pieces they recycled and reran,
Mhm.
and then, making whatever money you could make working as a sort of division of ski patrol on the mountain at that time. So it
Yeah.
was very much paying for beer money and bar money and covering some rent, and that was about it. So,
And then what inspired you to go from the mountains to the beach?
it's an interesting story, but mostly a girl at the time. So that was a relationship that fizzled out after a year or so of being there. But I thought, everybody, the California dream, right? Let's go check out the West Coast. Let's see what California's like. I believe I caught the nature and wildlife bug while I was working up in the mountains. And I knew being outdoors was something special, something that fueled me. And that took me to, mindset's always been a big thing for me. I think since high school, since everything, I've always been fairly competitive. So having ways to release the competition, to shut down the stress in your brain, to just slow down has always been nature. I thought I would find the same thing at the beach, but I didn't realize,
Mm,
you know, how many people sit 6 feet away from you at the beach and how crowded all these things are. So I did do 10 years in San Diego and I loved it. It was an amazing place. I've got nothing
yeah.
bad to say about California. That was all pre-COVID, and I left in 2017, came back to Colorado, and I've been here ever since.
Yeah. I do think people that have the love of outdoors that it is very much you're either mountain or sea.
Yeah,
And I'm definitely more mountain as well, for sure.
I like the space and the freedom, and just,
Hmm.
you can get lost real fast and, metaphorically lost. You can get lost real quick, and your head and everything just kind of melts off of you, and you feel really free and surrounded by, nature that charges your soul, or at least it does for me. So it's always been a really, really good grounding and really good space for me.
Yeah, no, I mean it's one of the like core wellness pillars like for people who have depression or anxiety or who are um contemplating going on antidepressants. When I ever have clients like that, I make sure that we work through the five main pillars and which is
Yep.
sleep, always sleep. Sleep's the
Oh
most
yeah.
important one
Oh
of all
yeah.
of them. Diet, exercise, community and connection, and then nature and sunlight.
Yeah.
And if you're getting a good amount of all of those things and you're still feeling down, then like, okay, let's look at, maybe something more invasive
Yep.
or more potent. But those things, if you're ticking those off every day, like
You're heading in the right
really,
direction. Yeah.
yeah. And I think you intuitively always knew that about being outside.
Yep.
It's something it's like been revived in me in the last few years. I think really since I started training to be a therapist, and I got into hiking, I was like, oh God, yeah, I really love nature. But I was
Totally.
very disconnected from that for a long time. I was like such a city
It's,
person.
I think I don't know. I sometimes just point the finger and say it's an American cultural thing. I think it's a global issue, to be honest. Just it's more more highlighted, more prominent in the U.S. But this cliche of you either live to work or work to live is
Mm,
that's always been pretty profound for me. I truly believe I am a work to live individual. Don't get me wrong, there's lots of stuff I do that I'm super passionate about and I love, but I don't wake up every day just saying I want, this day's work and everything I do to define exactly who I am. I want places to be, I want to live places that charge me up, that make me feel good. I want to have hobbies and passions that I know I can do that I feel define who I am as an individual. And just getting outside and being in nature and being fortunate enough to now live in the Rocky Mountains, these are things that, I just kind of knew that that was the trajectory I needed to go on. So I think that's part of the reason I became an entrepreneur, was because I couldn't sell my time. I just didn't, and actually I started in the
yeah.
beginning as an entrepreneur selling my time, and that was probably one of my biggest mistakes. But it's just, everybody says time is the most finite resource, but you give that up to someone else and you've basically given up your freedom. So in my opinion, it's you got to make sure that's the most important thing in moderation and balance the career and balance the stuff that charges you up.
Yeah. I don't see myself ever being able to work for someone else again.
I bet, yeah. Well, you got the
Yeah.
bug, you got caught, you got stung, so
Yeah.
now
There's
you're
no
on.
going back.
Yeah.
It's not an option. It's just
It's
not.
and it's everybody says the entrepreneur lifestyle. It's a great, if you can figure it out, it's a great lifestyle. It's a good balance, but it also can be very depressing and very
It's a,
isolating and
quite the
very,
teething
very
process to figure
low.
it out.
Oh yeah, I mean that entrepreneur's depression is a very, very real thing. So it's a lot of pressure and a lot of other stuff that comes with it. So
Yeah, I have to say the past year has been it's been challenging, first year like fully doing it on my own, so I get it.
yeah,
I
but you've
get
also crammed like 20 life events into the last 2.5 weeks. So I mean,
it.
I don't know. I think you're a bit of a masochist over there. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Um, One of the earliest memories I have of talking about, like really talking about career with you,
Hmm.
was when I was visiting you in San Diego. So, because I mean, obviously we grew up together and we always talked about jobs and stuff, but I don't think, I think when we're younger, you just don't. It's not on the forefront of your mind. We were more interested
Yeah.
in partying and having fun when we were together.
Yep.
But then it was around when I was finishing up at UCLA and you were living in San Diego. And I remember you telling me that you were reading a book. I think it was the 4 Hour Work Week.
Yep.
And you were like, I'm gonna figure this out. I'm doing this. And you were like, it's called lifestyle design, and I'm
Yep.
gonna design my life. And I mean, I thought it sounded awesome, but I was
Yep.
obviously like, I was still studying. So I was like, okay, well, if you can make that work, whatever. It was very inspiring. But what happened was I then sat back and watched you do that. And it was crazy because you did it from you telling me that to you becoming fairly successful was not a long span of time. And I just remembered being like, how the fuck did he do that? Like, how did he do that? I am going to do that. I have to do
Yeah.
that.
So, let the rabbit out of the hat there. The 4 hour work week, I think even Tim Ferriss admitted this, is just not real,
Not
right? It doesn't
true.
exist. It's just a bunch of bullshit to get people chasing the carrot, but and buying his bestseller. But the lifestyle design part, I think, is extremely real. One of the things I did, so I had a couple businesses. I had a tech company during the 2008 crash. That was extremely fun, trying to start a business and fundraising and everything. Um, then I moved into marketing and starting my own digital marketing agencies, primarily paid ads, so Meta, Google, TikTok, all that kind of stuff. The reason we moved into that was because I didn't know how to do any of that stuff when we had the tech company, and it was critical, and that
Mm,
kind of was my role figuring it out. But throughout all of it, I always had some guiding principles, which were I need to be able to own at least 1 hour of every day myself. And what I mean by that is I kind of have this plan. It's a loose plan. Today's a Monday. It's 10 a.m. here in Colorado. And typically I would try to own the first part of a Monday. So, if I got meetings, if I got other stuff, try not to plan those till 10 or 11. If I can get a workout or run or something in on a Monday, even if it's not work production, I feel so much better for the rest of the
Yeah.
week. And I feel like you can kind of add those little habits and little lifestyle design tricks into other ways. Like for me, living in the mountains, if I'm super stressed out, I go for a walk. If I do these kind of things, it just helps me reset and recalibrate. Starting my own businesses was really just a catalyst to helping me design the life that I really wanted to live.
Yeah. Yeah, and the setting the tone on the Monday thing, it was from your example. When I started my private practice, at first I did have a couple clients on a Monday, but then as my schedule shifted, I was like, I don't want to have clients on Mondays.
Yeah,
Monday is my day to prepare for the week. So now I do
totally.
podcast on Monday, and I have the hour or
Or, if
two
you,
of
or even if you
recording.
have a shitty Monday and you say, today I'm not doing anything, I have zero
Yeah.
production and I have zero this, you give yourself a little grace and space. I mean, I know that is a privilege of starting a business, and it's not the easiest to get to that point where you can give yourself that space. And that's not an absolute. It's not an every Monday. It's not an every week and every day. You're, again, back to the mindset, you're giving yourself goals and a vision. And I'm a big believer in, call it manifestation, call it whatever you want to call it, right? You got to see the finish line to get to the finish line. When you're running up the hill and you're getting beat up, you don't know where the top of the hill is, and you give up, and then you find out you're only 50 steps from the top of the hill, and you would have made it to the top of the hill, right? So the lifestyle design stuff has been really important to me. I've always been willing to sacrifice money over
Hmm.
happiness, and I'm a big believer in three things now. This has come from some challenges in work and come from some maybe not so great, maybe some toxic relationships and missteps, but I call it the three P's. It's the people, the project, and the pay. And it's always in that order. You got to have two of the three. And if you're really relying on the pay, it's a little tough.
Mm,
If you can get the people and the project dialed in, the pay will happen, and you will
yeah.
figure that out because you're happy, you're inspired, you feel good. This is probably why I became an entrepreneur, but I've always had an issue with people who I don't respect telling me what to do, or who
Mm,
don't, I don't believe, have a vision. Or there's problem people who just whine, and then there's solution people who fix problems. And when you throw me in a room with a bunch of problem people, I try to solve problems. And that sometimes is great in a team environment, and other times that can be confrontational. It can butt heads. It can do this. But I think being able to start my own businesses and fire clients has been a huge thing for me. I only want to surround myself with people that respect me and
yeah.
respect the work I do. You want to feel valued. You don't just want to feel like mistreated and disrespected. That's a tough place to wake up every day. And I've
Yeah.
done it. I've felt that. It's not fun. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we've all worked with the wrong people. It definitely helps set the trajectory. And I mean,
yep.
even for me now with client work, I'm starting to like listen to my intuition a lot more when I get like a new client inquiry, and I'll be like, "Ooh, that doesn't feel like that would be an aligned partnership, but
Yep.
happy to refer you to someone else."
Totally. You got to look for the red
Whereas at
flags.
the
You know,
beginning, I was like, "Oh my God, a new client. Yes, I'll work with
yeah.
you." And now I'm like, "Whoa, I cannot believe some of the people that I worked
And
with."
honestly, I think it applies to everything, right? It's not just work. It's like you start realizing, why do I keep having a pattern of toxic dating relationships, of friendships, of this? And like, it's about finding that pattern that's not good to you, and removing that. So,
Yeah, well, on that, what would you say in your career that have been your biggest like redirecting slash rock bottom moments?
okay, rock bottom moments. So I can think of probably two really big rock bottom moments, and I think they're different lessons came from them. Um, the first tech startup that I created in 2008, or maybe it was 2007, really tough time, really hard to build that business. It was 4.5 years. It was a music technology
Mhm.
company. This is around the same time that the iPhone was coming out. Apple was doing iTunes, and just tough market to build that sort of business. I one day had sort of this like, I don't know if it was a realization, I don't know what it was, but it was, if you don't possess enough of the skills to run the business, you have to really look deep and hard at yourself. Am I a strength to this or am I a weakness? And there was many times with one of my business partners where we would walk through the drive-through at Wendy's with $3.19 in coins and buy off the 99-cent menu. Junior bacon cheeseburger, 6-piece chicken nuggets, double up on whichever one you're feeling frisky on that day, came to $3.19.
Wow.
Walking through the um, walking through the drive-through was a bit of a slap in the face of, wow, I'm feeling some real like shame to be walking inside again, seen by the same people, handing them coins to buy the 99-cent menu. And I'm not saying everything in life is about money and resources, but when you're at these moments where you can barely
Yeah.
fund a couple 99-cent cheeseburgers, you really need to ask yourself, what's going on here? And am I, beating a dead horse, or am I really trying to build something? And I learned in that instance, I always needed to feel like I had core skills and core knowledge to rely on myself. Um, that business was technology, so it was a website, everything online. I wasn't a developer, I wasn't a coder, I wasn't a designer, I wasn't even a digital marketer at that time yet. I was like spamming Craigslist trying to find musicians to get them on the website
Yeah,
with
I remember that.
20 different Gmail addresses because I had figured out the Craigslist like email
Uh-huh.
suspension program, and this was just not a scalable way to grow any sort of business, and it was beating me up, and I was barely able to afford Wendy's, and I had to really look myself hard in the mirror and ask some tough questions. And that is what I sort of said, what do I love that I'm really doing? And I loved connecting with people. And that was the biggest thing about that business. I loved meeting the musicians. We would throw concerts all around Southern California, and every musician that showed up to play knew me, well, virtually knew me. And I felt
I
really,
remember
like,
that. I went
really
to one of those
privileged.
concerts.
Yeah, I felt really
Yeah.
privileged and rewarded and appreciated with the connection with people. And I said, you know what, there's a cool way to do that in marketing. It kind of tapped into my, whether I knew this in the beginning or not, it kind of tapped into the psychology background, tapped into the writing background, and this gave me a little bit of a leg up and that kind of stuff. And moved that into the marketing career, and that really took off for me. And in marketing, uh, it's not just marketing, it's every business. There's really two sides of the coin, right? And when I say that, I mean more like the black and the white side. There's a dark side to things, and then there's a good side to things. And I it's very quickly when you figure things out in an industry, in my opinion, there's the easy street, or there's the street that some people take because they can take advantage of it, and then there's the hard work, longer path, doing it the right way, feeling fulfilled. I would say I kind of found a middle ground in the very beginning in marketing, and it became wildly successful for me. It was very profitable, and it was great to be a part of that company. But one day I went to a yoga class. 5 minutes into the yoga class, you're doing your first sun salutation, you're sitting there. I laid down in the class, and basically, I think I had my first ever sort of panic attack just laying on the floor. People do an hour of core power yoga, sweating on me, looking at me, who's this weirdo on the floor? And I had this moment where I said, this is not fulfilling me with the marketing career. I have to make a massive move. And there was a lot of tough questions. Am I even cut out for this? Your parents are constantly telling you, or at least mine, why don't you just get a real job? Why don't you go back and get a 9 to 5, learn from somebody else, join a big company, job security, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, look at job
Yeah.
security now, that doesn't even exist, right? So
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to continue on this path, this what I felt was this longer term lifestyle design, this vision of building a business. Um, and then I set very clear goals with myself. I also didn't want to just be chasing dollars. You know, that's where the three P's came in. I really wanted to work with good people on cool projects, and I wanted to help take them from zero to whatever the sky was, whatever the ceiling was for them, you know. In business, that happens to be usually a lot of revenue goals, but you know, taking a business from zero to multiple millions of dollars a year and just witnessing the transformation that that would have on people like a family doctor who lives in Michigan, or a
Hmm.
small company that's based in the US, or friends that I knew from college that are starting a venture backed company. Being a part of these journeys and seeing where I could help really started to inspire me. And I said to myself, no more am I ever going to have these fucking panic attacks laying on the bottom of a yoga class while people are looking at me when I'm sitting there.
There's no shame in that though. And
No, no,
those
there was,
moments are so important, right? Because
yeah, it
it,
was definitely a rock. Those were two big rock bottom moments. And the first one was make sure I could rely on myself always and that I had the skills to execute on things. And then the second one was make sure I had good relationships and I got out of the toxic partnership that I was in with that marketing company, and I did a bold thing for the first time and just sort of trusted myself. I was like, I can figure this out without depending on three other partners and a team and other stuff to help me. Um, I'm going to sort of start over, but start over in an industry where I know how to get a leg up and I know how to kind of scale fast. And that turned into what it is today. And it's been one of the biggest transformations for me.
yeah. Yeah, I remember when you left the the like the music one.
Yeah,
I definitely remember that.
super tough. That one was tough. It was really,
Yeah. Well, you had put, I mean, as any entrepreneur should, you put your whole heart and soul and everything had gone into
yeah.
that. So
I
that was
think
a
it's,
really big.
I looked at it though, you know, we'd spent about 5 years, I think, doing that business, and a little longer than a master's program or a PhD, but depending upon what you're specializing in. But
Mhm.
that was my crash course in business, and I came out of it and I understood, you know, as much as I possibly could about the business world and running an online business and everything, and that helped me really move into what I'm doing now. I look back at those moments, those rock
Mhm.
bottom moments. I've said this to friends. Sometimes it's in their personal life, it's addiction, it's happiness, it's love.
Mhm.
You really need to hit the floor to realize how far away you are from, you know, the
What you
sky
want.
or the ceiling or where you want to be. You need slapped in the face with some reality. For me, it was literally laying on the floor in yoga class, you know,
Yeah.
realizing this is not good for me. And you know, there's a lot of, you know, you ask yourself a lot of imposter syndrome. Am I good enough for this? Can I even make this work? Is this the wrong path? You know, that's what I meant in the beginning about mindset and entrepreneurs' depression. I mean, that's a real thing. You have to have outlets that keep you healthy and keep you with that sort of confident winning mindset, because otherwise life's going to test you. I swear, I think your dad said this to me. You know, your dad has a way with words and a funny way of twisting things to make you think about stuff that can be a little harder. I believe what he said was something, and I'll paraphrase to the effect of, hey man, in business, the number one thing you never know is coming is the challenge around the next corner. So I believe you know, mantra, the takeaway from that was just be prepared. You know, nothing is easy street. It's hard work. Just know that around that next turn, there's something coming that you need to kind of be ready for. And I've taken that into a lot of different things that I think about. And in some ways, I respected or reflected on, you know, the panic attack in the yoga class, or the um, walking through the drive-through with change in my pocket, of these are challenges, these are I didn't expect to be walking through a drive-through. I didn't expect to be spending 55 minutes laying on a yoga mat. But they give me moments that I look forward to. Okay, what's next? Where do I go from here? And I'm always been pretty resilient, and that's helped me.
Yeah. I'm not surprised at all that that was something that my dad said, for
Mark has
sure.
Mark has his way with words.
He does. And I mean, obviously he was a very successful businessman. But yeah, he had a lot of rock bottoms. And that's, coming from as a parent, a fear based place for me, he's really directed that on me, especially in the past like year or two, about having emergency money and being prepared because he really drilled it into me when we last spoke about it. Like, he was like, where's your budget for your emergency fund? Like, you have to
Yeah.
have it because you just don't know. And it's so true. But it's hard when you're bootstrapping, which is, I remember
Oh
you
yeah.
you used to say that all the time, that you were bootstrapping, when you
Yeah.
had to take the $3.19 to the drive-through. Like, it's, yeah, the rainy day fund.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I mean, you say you use the term rock bottom. I know I already talked about that, but I think they're kind of like milestones in your life. I look at them more as like, okay, here we were, and then here we go, right? How do you get there? So they're great learning opportunities and lessons, and I try to do that with almost everything I do, right? I'm a big like resolutions guy. I'm a big checklist. I'm a big, I don't know, routine, creature of habit. And some of that stuff that works well for me is reminding myself of core principles, core things, and those two rock bottom moments completely changed my life. I gave up drinking for many years. I became a big meditator. I started doing breath work. I started doing, really embracing a bit more of like a spiritual side of myself. Started working out 5, 6 days a week, and
Yeah.
just it created a whole new healthy pattern, a whole new healthy, back to the lifestyle design. It was stuff that I didn't know I was missing from my plan. Going out 3 days a week drinking to cope with stress is not a very healthy way to get through your, late 20s to 30s. But something changed for me around like 33, 34. And I really think that that was a really pivotal kind of breakthrough in my life.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's an age where a lot of people sort of start to reconsider a lot of their habits. But going back to you on the yoga mat,
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about panic attacks and things that trigger them. And so often, what we experience in the physical reality and what we experience mentally and emotionally is not aligned.
Mm.
And our body holds on to stuff, right? So we'll feel like we're in a good place or we'll feel like we're not in a good place, and our body might not reflect that. So you
Mm.
might have like gone into the yoga class and you were like, giving yourself a pep talk and being strong, whatever, and your body was just like, enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I see this a lot when people have their first panic attacks and they talk about them in therapy. They're like, I don't understand. Like, all the bad stuff happened a few months ago. I'm fine now. I'm
Oh,
fine.
yeah.
And it's like, well, your body hasn't caught up
I
yet.
think I was I don't even know. It was like trying to reflect back, it was a while ago now. It must have been like 2015. So it was that decade. But it was a combination of, oh shit, am I making the same mistakes I made with the first bit? It was a lot professionally based at the time of,
Mm,
where do I want to go in life? Am I happy with these relationships I'm surrounded in? Am I just way over my head? Am I this? It also had to do with some personal stuff, but I think it was probably a bit more heavy focused on, and I believe it was the beginning of a breakthrough moment where I said, hey, it's time to stop throwing yourself into stuff that I didn't know, which was building technology companies at the time, and then trying to hope that other people could could like guide me and push me through. It was more trust and belief in myself. What am I good at? I'm really good at writing. I was really good at I think I was really good at
You are
writing.
very, very, very good at writing. I was going
Okay.
to reinforce that at the beginning when you said that you started with the copywriting
Yeah,
thing. Scott is an excellent writer. And he has actually helped me write bios and like
I remember
done
those.
copy with me. Because I mean, writing is one of my skill sets too, but Scott's
Totally.
very good.
Well, I
Yeah.
appreciate that, and I realized like, okay, I'm really good at this. I'm really good at that. I really like video creation. I really like creating these ads. I really like speaking to people. I don't think I'm down the wrong path. I just think I'm doing it in a way that's not making me feel as good as I could. Um, that's what I meant about kind of this. There's this black and white. There's this light and dark sort of way of doing everything in every industry, right? And in the marketing industry, there's a lot of things you can do. You can prey on people's insecurities. You can try to target only fears. It just wasn't
Yeah.
really, it doesn't feel good, right? I mean, you're walking around doing all that. You wouldn't do that in your day to day life. I mean, I hope people wouldn't do that. So why would you do that in a professional setting to try to make a buck? I very
Yeah, like
quickly
the fear and
realized
manipulation that's in so much marketing is
in
disgusting.
everything, right? I mean, we've all seen this stuff on Netflix and all that. But I very quickly realized you can solve problems. And bringing it back to what I intrinsically think that I am, I think I'm a can do person. I think if you tell me this cannot be done and it's a big problem, a big barrier, I am going to try to figure out a way to do it. And in marketing, that is an incredibly important skill because ideas only last so long, campaigns only last so long. You got to fix problems. I say that every business is a leaky bucket. The owner does not know where all the holes are, and as soon as I start sending lots of traffic to their business, I find every little hole, and then I got to patch up the holes, right? Make the bucket hold water. So um, that's kind of how I started lasering in business. And I want to run the advertising side of a business. I want to basically be like I wouldn't say like a renter for hire CMO, but I would like to be someone who's got their hands on performance. I want to be driving customers to a business. I want to be making people feel good about a brand. I want to be telling stories about the brand that glorify the customers and make them look good and talk about transformation, not talk about all the other stuff. And my partners at the time that I was in. I was with four partners in a very successful, well, quote unquote, very successful marketing company. Back around, this was from about 2010 to 2017, maybe somewhere in there, maybe a
Hmm.
couple of years after. But in that sort of 7 to 10 year period, I realized that I was stuck with the relationships and I needed to figure out a way to get past that. And that was really important. That was a big, big milestone for me.
Yeah, I feel like your business relations have been like one of your biggest pain and growing points in your
Yeah.
development over the years.
I mean, I'm not going to pretend I'm the best at what I do. I think I'm very talented at what I do, and I've learned a lot, which has helped me stand out in a crowded market. But I swear, relationship. I used to call myself a relationship marketer. I don't even know what the
Hmm.
hell that
Yeah, I
meant. But
remember you used to say that. Yeah.
I truly believe I care a lot about the people I work with, and I care a ton about their brand. Once I am working on a project, I'm so intimately invested that it's like my own. I look at it as that is my brand. How do I make it work? What do I do? And I think people sense that passion and they
Hmm.
sense that commitment. And that's the stuff that builds trust. And, being good to people, being kind, being, respectful. You don't have to treat people like shit in business just to get ahead. I mean, I see people that do that, and sure, some of them have successful businesses, some of them don't. That's not the way I want to do it. I want to make people realize, like, hey, that guy's awesome. He's an A player. He's an asset
Hmm.
to our team, and I want him, even though I'm not part of their team, I want them to think that I am an extension of their team, and I take that as my number one skill to any business I work with.
So, what would you say? What's your biggest career like highlight? What's the thing that you're most proud of?
Biggest career highlight. Um, I would say probably that's a good one. I'm trying to think.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
I just feel like, we really picked apart some rock bottoms and we looked at some
yeah,
negative things, but you've accomplished so much on your
yeah.
own. If you were going to brag about yourself, if you were like your mother bragging about you at a dinner party to all her friends, what would you say? What would she say?
I think, I think I would say it's some of the stuff I've already touched on, but I think it's some of, again, it's working with great brands and the relation. I'm best friends with a guy who's 60 years old who runs a mortgage company that's 30 plus years strong, right? And this guy, you throw me in a room, you wouldn't think that some dude who's 42 and some dude who's 60 might become like best friends, but and when we first started, we had to lay down the law with each other. He's a tough guy sometimes to work with, and you've got to speak honestly and candidly. And I think I would say the things I'm most proud of are that I feel like I'm living a very authentic version of myself now. I feel like what I pour
Yeah.
into marketing, I'm proud of. What I produce, when it produces awesome results, and a lot of times it's doing that for me these days, which I'm very lucky for, I feel the reward of work. So I would say my biggest breakthrough, I've got a 2 year old now, I've got a wife, I live in the mountains, I love snowboarding and mountain biking. I could very easily just say to hell with work and have a really great time, but it's the fact that I feel passionate about what I do day to day. And I would say that I don't want to say I have self actualized or realized lifestyle design, but I think I've gotten pretty close now.
I think you've gotten pretty close.
And
I also want to say
that's what I'm
that
most proud of.
the spaces that you exist in, so it's not just outside and nature.
Yep,
I've seen your homes over
yep,
the years, and even when you were like bootstrapping, in San Diego, you always had nice homes, and you take so much pride in your home, and you're clean and you're organized,
yep.
and you always made even, something much less like rich than your current home. You even made smaller places really wonderful places to visit.
I appreciate that. It's a really nice compliment and nice to hear. And, I've had a lot of issues with sense of home. I'm sure you have too. One of the things that I think is a blessing and a curse with a lot of people we went to school with, the whole expat kind of moving around, all that stuff. It's great because you like kind of re-identify with yourself or create a new identity, I guess, for some people, and you create connections that are global, but you don't really have a sense of home. I think I have found places now that really make me feel good and pouring into them. But what you just said there, I thought about is that's kind of how I feel about projects that I work on. That's kind of how I feel about relationships. I'm super happy to say that I have had 2 dogs that are probably the best, in my opinion, the best dogs you could ever have in your entire life. And,
Yeah.
you know, and when I feel that kind of connection with animals and a sense of home and then friends and other stuff, I feel like I'm headed on a good path. So it's how do you just keep doing more of the same? So to answer your question, I feel I feel like I'm authentically living a good version of myself right now.
Yeah. And on top of that, I would say your ability to cultivate and maintain relationships is like top notch.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. It's harder with a 2 year old running around screaming dada all the time. But other than that, it's doing my best.
Yeah. Okay, well, if you reflect back on your rock bottom moments,
Hmm.
what would you, the seasoned, successful entrepreneur, CEO, founder, sitting in his castle in the mountains in Breckenridge, what would you say to yourself in your lowest rock bottom moment, like coming through that drive through with the 99 cents from Wendy's?
Yeah, so good question. I would say it's probably a two-part thing. Figure out, everybody says set your intentions, set all these things, set your goals. Those are so like, you don't really know, right? I think it's so easy to be like, in 5 years, I want this, I want that. I think you need to set like, back to the lifestyle design, design what you want the life to look like on a week to week basis. I want to own an hour a day of my time. I want to take walks when I'm stressed out. I want to figure out what those healthy habits are that can put you into, I want to sleep right. You talked about some of this stuff.
Mm,
Um, and make sure that you commit to yourself. As soon as you feel like you're lost, and that's every deadline is coming down, somebody else is barking at me, all the emails stress me out, I get text messages that bother me, it's probably because you're not taking care of yourself the right way.
yeah.
So I try to selfishly make sure I take care of myself so that I can be, I call it this best self, best version, whatever. That was when I stopped drinking for a long time. And I think that that's really important in every relationship. So I would say to myself, get clear on what mindset you want and how you achieve those things, and make them small. Don't make them unachievable. I'm going to lose 50 pounds next week. That stuff doesn't happen. So
Yeah.
make them things, once you start seeing yourself achieving your goals, micro goals, you start building up confidence, right? And as soon as you start feeling like, holy shit, I just moved to Ireland. Holy cow, I'm on a podcast. I am now a therapist after all the work I put in. And, obviously I'm talking about you here, but it's, you know, you start checking the boxes
Yeah.
rather than a whole laundry list of things that don't happen. So
Well, and
mindset,
you learn to trust yourself,
you
right?
believe. Well, I think it's more than trust. Like, you believe in yourself. You're
Mm,
confident. You know your actions will back up your words, and you start becoming a bit more accountable and reliable. And that all packages into what I call sort of the mindset, right? And that is one. And then the other one is just fail small, fail fast, and fail small.
mm,
And what I mean by that is, don't go leverage your house. Don't go take out, $1 million on some crapshoot that you don't know and throw it all into Bitcoin and lose it. Or, it's trust yourself, make small steps every day. I'm a big believer of the 1% better. And if you can do 1% of something every day, you're probably doing a lot more than 99% of people. And even if half of those things are failures, they're lessons. And when they're small failures, it's a lot easier to recover and a lot easier to course correct, than it is when you've made a huge gamble on something. And don't get me wrong, I'm not adverse to risk. I've been an entrepreneur my
mm.
whole life now, so I'm very much a risk taker. But I feel if you have a healthy mindset, you're making the right kind of decisions, you get over the fear and the scarcity paradigms and all the other stuff that holds you back, and then you can take action faster. And if you fail small, you're going to learn a lot quicker than most people.
Yeah.
That's what I would probably tell the younger guy. And then I would say, stop eating fucking Wendy's. It's not even good for you anyways. So
Yeah. That's true. And also back to the first one, I mean that is like the one of the foundational points that was drilled into us when we were training to be therapists. The preparation, everything circles back to self-care, right?
yeah,
We can't show up for our clients if we're a mess. So
totally.
like by the time we qualified, so many people had quit drinking altogether or, smoking or, you know, any of the other things that they did. At too much
Yep.
caffeine. Actually,
Yep.
that's not true. I drank so much more coffee by the end of that training than at the beginning. But the
Yep.
self care is so with anything in life. You
Yeah.
can't
I
show
mean,
up for anyone or anything or do your work or do your projects if you're not taking care of yourself.
yeah, and I mean it can be dark, right? Things can be tough. I'm not pretending it's easy. Every day is sunsets and rainbows and blue skies, but I try. and this is not all the time, and then nothing I'm saying is an absolute because those don't exist, I don't believe. But what I really mean by this in my own life is today could suck, tomorrow could suck, but there needs to come a point where you're like, okay, Wednesday, I'm getting up and I'm owning the first hour of the day. I'm changing the sucky pattern. Whatever it is has to reset. I try to look at every day that way. If one day is really, really bad, okay. And it's taken a lot of work on myself to try to say, okay, this is just a bad day and accept it. And then it's kind of detached from the bad day and try to give tomorrow every opportunity to be a better day. And if you can do that, that is a step in the right direction. And the 1% better means get the things checked off on the list. Clean the house. Do the project that you haven't been, get the thing off your to-do list that you haven't done. Go get the groceries you need so you stop eating out. It's don't make these things, okay, tomorrow's going to be better. I'm going to make $1,000,000. I'm going to, teach my toddler Italian. I mean, come on. It's set realistic goals, start changing that mindset, get back into that best self or belief that you are working towards the best version of yourself, and then get going.
Boom.
Boom.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was great chatting with you.
Yeah, thank you so much.